I'll be honestly totally fair. I actually think the reason why like the Abbasids are not being picked much here on Highview is because they're just so much better on other maps. But yes, in general, if you're picking Abbasids on Highview in competitive, it makes sense that you probably aren't in the top 10. But he's 127th in the world. That's a respectable number. I love Lash. I love his commitment. I love his passion. This dude does a lot for the community. I know the German community especially loves him. Nearly's gone back to being a pro in AoE2, so he's kind of like a little, in some ways, he's kind of like your little baby AoE4 Nearly when you think about it. I mean, it's either him or Core. I have seen Lash win before. Okay, I'm going to stop him. I mean, it's going to be hard to win this one, though, because Marine Lord, he hasn't been playing many games, but he's still kind of got that va-va-voom. We did see him get roughed up on the weekend, but still respectable, going pretty deep in these tournaments, despite the fact he has very limited playtime at the moment. I think actually Marine Lord's maybe averaging 1 to 2 games a day, it feels like, somewhere in there. You don't actually get that many M-Lord games. Maybe 2 is the average, I say, because sometimes he does 3 or 4. But for the most, he's not actually playing as much as other people. I actually think this is a correct approach to take. It makes sure that you don't actually burn yourself out. Make sure you don't get tired of the game. Make sure that you're actually hungry for the game still when it matters most, which is when Warlord gets closer. And right now, M-Lord, look at this detail that he's doing. This is actually a really important detail. He's using the Gur to move around. I've been a big advocate of this. Like, the Gur can scout for you. It can also pick up and herd sheep. You just need to make sure you pack up and unpack and pack up again if you want to actually link the sheep. If you forget to do that, then the sheep are not going to become your friend. It's very sad, because in life, if you can't even make a sheep your friend, quite frankly, existence is depressing. I mean, they're not very difficult to make friend with. I've done it before. You simply walk up to the pasture, and you go, meh. And then they look at you weirdly, and you go, meh. And then the baby sheep do it back. True story. It's very effective. Also works on goats. Which is appropriate, because we're watching one of the goats at AoE4 at the moment. Marine Lord, definitely no pushover, even when he is a little bit rusty and already understands. I pick Mongol. I must go early aggression. And look at that. Of course, someone banned that word. So let's see what a henchman can do as the Mongols as he makes his way across the open fields. And actually, there's a lot of value here. M-Lord can easily block out the goal to start with and then start to crawl in onto the tree line. In fact, if you look at this generation, this is vicious for Lash. He only has one safe tree line. Compare that to the Mongols, you can see there's a lot more access, a lot more ease of gathering here on the side of the blue. I mean, this is brutal. So I'm curious to see how Lash is going to defend against it. The cool thing about being the Abbasids, I actually think they're one of the best civs of dealing with the outpost rush of the Mongols right now, simply because they can easily get into the siege required, right? Rams got buffed in that they have 50 wood less, and also you don't need to build in a blacksmith, which you need 150 wood, as well as siege engineering, which is just, I think it's 275 resources, if I remember correctly, to actually get there. So, like, actually removing those gatekeeps in the early game means that I would say Abbasids is definitely, like, top 3 for hardest civs to rush in the early game. It's actually really frustrating to even try. Up there, I definitely put English as well, simply because they can pull short bows and spam you down for trying these outposts. And I think something like maybe, what would be my third one? Maybe just another Mongol, actually. They're pretty brutal to deal with. Sorry, did I say 275? I meant 175. It's still a lot that you're saving, though. You're saving over 300 resources to get to the counter. And right now, M-Lord, we'll see where he wants to go with this. I mean, he's invested in a decent amount of spears. It doesn't feel good to overdo it into spears, simply because you're up against the Abbasids. Notice that originally, M-Lord was looking at going towards the stable. He stopped that, though, simply because you're up against the Abbasids. They want to have a reason to build A, spears, and B, camel archers. And you would be giving them that reason. Oh, the tech up's coming through. Notice that the Mongols are delayed, as is standardized whenever you go for this play, because you're investing in the racks, which is 150 resources. Uvu, of course, always going to delay slightly as well. In conjunction with that, you're spending 80 resources twice in this situation. You can see how that quickly adds up. Like, you're over halfway to the cost of a tech up at this point. Nice brace, nice guard here. Archers are going to start being built up. Of course, remember, this is the popular way to go. You're going to usually easily get the counter, because the other thing to keep in mind is, like, when a Mongol player comes to outpost rush you, you have enough time to keep gathering wood, to get the archery range, get at least one archer out, and afford the ram before they can actually block out your wood line. That's why Mongols likely to get limited effect here, especially with the archers now coming out to get the bonus damage. Love the usage of the villagers here. Good micro coming out from Lash. Torch damage will threaten him. Good choice here coming out from Emlord. Will instantly just cancel the outpost. It's very difficult to actually get these outposts up if you get harassed in the build-up. With only 750 HP these days and an extra 50% damage coming in, it's not uncommon to see just 2 scouts basically stick it in burn distance upon completion. So always something you have to be careful with. Meanwhile, back at home, we will now see good old Pate go into that stables. Makes sense, right? You've seen the archers, you force a reaction. However, the next reaction should actually counter you out because now you've gone stables and spears. This is where we should see a switch come out into spear plus archer. Something that's very powerful for the Abbasids due to the phalanx, due to their ability to, very easily transition into archery ranges to the double value of being able to go camel archers down the line. Usually, I feel like the Abbasids are probably the most flexible civ. Right, if you actually think, if you kind of draw out all the civs and their abilities to go into different unit types, and the variance gameplay, and how easy it is to play into X or Y unit, at this stage in the game, like up to 10 minutes, I don't think there's any civ that has an easier time than the Abbasids. Right? And if they don't need to play into unit types, then they just play into TCs. Like, this civ has so much flexibility right now. I'd actually say it has almost as much flexibility as the Rus. The Rus, to me, are a little bit more gated in their unit types. The difference is they get more flexibility and more variance play via the way they interact with the map. Because one big thing they have, and trust me, if they added this in for the Abbasids, this civ would be broken, is that the Rus can play onto board. I think that's like the thing that's kind of keeping it chill for the moment, right? Could you imagine if Abbasids could play ball? Dude, I mean, it's Volga to think about. It's Volga to think about the fact that right now, Emlord is just trying to harass him here, trying to block him on the stone, but it doesn't work. There's just too many military units. Exchange is not really feeling that great yet for the Mongols as Lash is taking the lead. Now the villager pullback's going to come in because the extra layer of horsemen will threaten him somewhat. So good maneuvering coming out there. Meanwhile, back in the base, the Mongols are going to stage themselves, stake their claim in a prolonged feudal here. Would love to see a play by Pate onto the board. I think it's something you can naturally play towards. You have the opportunity to pocket eco whenever you have mid-map control, and there's no doubting that you've got mid-map control. Even more so when you see what Lash has to do. It's now spears plus archers. This means he has no mobility to move across the map. Meantime, speaking of those archers, whoopsie daisy, not the best of exchanges coming out for Lash, but now that the spears have arrived, this should be a backup, a retreat point. And so far, some hesitation coming out to move directly onto that ball. I think it's... Oh, baby, yeah, let's hit it. Let's hit it right now. All right, he's pulling the villagers now. I wondered if this was going to be a TC on the ball. He is gathering for the TC, but I don't think it's going to the ball. It's just going to be 5 villagers out into the midfield. That's enough to garrison the outposts to the safe. And in the meantime, back at home, he's actually going for the town center. Whoops. Whoops. Free wood short. He's going to fix that. It's okay. He's walking out here for it anyway onto the deer. This is a really crafty play, actually. It's like double greed, and it's pocketed in a way that Lash shouldn't notice. Here's the reasoning why Lash won't notice. For a start, Lash only played 1 scout, and that scout got sniped, right? On top of that, he played Rax plus archery range. So what he's done is he's built a static army. His issue is now, as he pushes down the center, he's going to notice this ball play, and he's going to direct all his attention towards it. So what Marinelord has done is he's actually smuggled this TC on the side in a place that's never going to get identified. It's actually really crafty. I love these type of maneuvers because it's got kind of 1-2 punch. I always talk about how the highest level players look for the double up. One advantage isn't enough. He's getting a double advantage here. He's getting the gathering of the ball, and the ball also draws attention away from the TC. Even if Lash discovers one, he shouldn't discover the other. And he might not even discover one, considering that Marinelord, with the Horseman, still keeps him on the defensive. Of course, why wouldn't you want to keep him on the defensive? What is the typical thing we see out the Abbasids? They want to get their TCs up. They want to boom. They feel like they have the confidence to lead in that regard. And I got bad news for Lash here. With the gathering rates we're talking about, like the berries are always going to be good, but the advantage you should have is now kind of gone because Marinelord played both deer and boar. Remarkable gathering rates and should be even better because I'm expecting survival techniques and boom, he already got it. It makes so much sense in this game. And if we look at the income per minute, you can see they're neck and neck. This is the power of playing off of these proxy bases, off these pocket ecos, right? Because you can. And all that comes down to this decision of the two, the archery range and the racks. Because Marine Lord only made that move afterwards. Interesting thing, actually, he didn't go for the improved forestry. I'm still going to shake my fist and say more players should be doing this, especially if they want to go multi-TC. But in fairness, with Marine Lord's build, the difference between other builds that I've seen go early TC is he fielded a lot of aggression, where some players will just fall back after 5 units max and then build their TC. So he has a bit of justification as to why he didn't go for the improved forestry, whereas other players don't, and I should beat them with a stick. Or someone should. Meanwhile, this outpost, still frustration. And the arrow slits is coming in. Funnily enough, poor little Lash doesn't even know what he's about to get himself in store for. The wolves are starting to go up, or at least he's attempting. In the meantime, Marine Lord is making his way up. A step redoubt already being built into. Lash, however, nowhere near ready. You have to remember, he invested a lot more in military at this stage of the game. He's also a lot more delayed in getting into survival techniques. Everything feels so delayed by what Mongo's done in the early game to him. It was effective from Marine Lord. Although Lash has the advantage at the moment, he needs to do more of it. Villagers need to get out. I like this pinch with the Horseman. It draws the attention to the backside. That should give the room for the villagers to retreat. They need to get out right now. It seems like he's trying to draw away more spears, so there's no torch damage, but these outposts are just way too squishy to keep up. I do like that he's trying to snipe the round, though. That's actually a nice little pick. Considering the limited health, and now the villagers will look to run away. Shuffle off. Considering the archers move slower, he should be able to get most of them out. Meanwhile, tech up about to complete. Lash has saved the required quantity, so can make his own way up. In the meantime, though, he got butchered over here. Was not able to gather on the deer. Lash is now 6 villagers behind Marine Lord. Great manipulation. Great exploitation of that early aggression to milk Lash for all he's worth in this early game. Too much time spent in Feudal in this matchup right now. Too much time delayed getting that second TC. And now Lash, you kind of feel like you're a few steps behind, because this is where it really ramps up. Keep in mind that Marine Lord, alongside this aggression, alongside this TC, alongside this castle timing, still managed to find the space to create multiple outposts across the map. The importance of these outposts is that they're going to allow him to see any block attempts on relics, but also move his shaman out quicker to pick up these relics. That's why I'm expecting to look back in his base and see a temple already going up. It looks like he has delayed the timing, but give it about 20 more seconds, and you'll see him picking up relics. For good reason as well, considering the layout does favor him grabbing the majority. Meanwhile, outpost on the backside still not answered. Deer not being accessible is going to be a problem soon. In fact, the timings of this should line up pretty well from Marine Lord. By the time Lash needs access to the deer, the monk should be moving out into midfield. And at that point, what should happen here is Lash is going to divert units across to deal with this outpost to get his deer. And when that happens, you can sneak in and take away these relics. Good lord, Camel barely living there. I just hope he doesn't go for Mosque. I think if Lash goes for Mosque now, it feels kind of game throwy. You want it in your build, but you can't rush it anymore. Like, you need to get enough troops together to apply pressure on Marine Lord's side of the map. And we talked about that prayer tent coming down. Shaman's ready to start being pushed for Marine Lord, and plenty of gold to do so. Seems he's forgotten about its existence, though, which is a bit of a whoopsie-daisy. In fact, is he thinking about... Yeah, I actually think Marine Lord's going to go for the pack-up and maneuver. He's going to move around with the prayer tent to pick up the relics. We don't see people do it as often anymore, but actually Marine Lord was one of the players who most frequently done it. It was very rare to see him actually keep a prayer tent back at home. Meanwhile, push in. First man-at-arms arriving in the base, a few archers as well, and this is going to get frustrating for Lash. Can't access his gold. Has got plenty in reserve, needs to put it to good use to get the counters out. Meantime, we now said about this requirement to access the deer. Last berry patch remaining. He needs to get access to it, which is why he's now shifting Ram north side. That's 250 wood investment. He will be able to circle it around and snipe out more, but in the meantime, you can see that Marine Lord is A, posturing in the area for aggression, but B, posturing in the area to grab relics. And also now the archery range stockpiling. Makes sense, right? You're up against the Abbasids. They're probably going to want to get hard into man-at-arms. Is a kind of atypical build. We saw the scout out on the racks at the backside. Like, he has the info. It's a good read. It's a good conversion point for Marine Lord in the meantime. Just keeping pressure at the back of Lash's base allows him to now yoink 4 relics from elsewhere on the map. And sure, you won't get this 5th one because of the way you're now playing this, but you don't need it. 4 is good enough, and actually the fact that you're likely to get 4 might even deter Lash from even going for a Mosque in the first place. Wow. Okay, so it was double prayer tent. I mean, it makes sense if you think about it. Like, Marine Lord believes he's definitely going to get 4 relics at least, so he needs an extra prayer tent anyway. In the meantime, speaking of things that you want in your prayer tent, this 1 relic is now guarded by Lash. The problem is only 1 relic is guarded. And the Ram has paid for itself, right? It got rid of 2 of these emplacements. However, I don't think it's getting rid of 3rd. Not with the arrival of 2nd Lancer. That's just a freebie. I'm surprised Lash gave that over. But if you look at it from his perspective, Lash has no vision. So he's super paranoid. He'll send the Ram in, but he's worried that if he goes in with the troops, there might be archers there might be crossbows. There could be any number of units waiting to kill you off. Relic count quickly escalating. Man-at-Arms are stockpile pushing down the center. Marine Lord has prepped the counter though. Although he's been slow about it. In fact, mainly it's just archers right now, so this could be an opportunity for Lash to pounce. He needs a premium target though, and the issue you do have is you're pushing Man-at-Arms. These Man-at-Arms, like, they're not really smash, right? They don't actually have a way of killing off villagers easily, especially when they're yammed up like this. An interesting choice here, by the way. Marine Lord did go for forestry, but not improved forestry. So he sees some value in it, but I think the issue is the Uvu dried up when he would have wanted it, and he doesn't want to now move a go over to where the Uvu is located. Lash around the backside. Now watch how underwhelming this is going to be. Oh, wait. The Marine Lord? He's injured. He's injured right now, so he won't be able to. No wall, however, an early warning for him to maneuver away. There's 1 or 2 villages, but minimizes casualties where it should have been several. And Lash still 12 villages behind. The Russian comes out. The MAA begin to dive. Archers now quickly shifting to react. And the Mangonel fire coming in the choke points. Good utilization here. Marine Lord backs up just enough, wraps around the villages, and ensures that the Man-at-Arms cannot get on top of the siege. Villagers will now go back to work. A heavy hit, but M-Lord says he cannot be without the wood, even though he's almost got 2k surplus. Not really sure what the logic there is. What he actually needs is food. Food is drying up fast. However, this Mangonel has definitely been paying for itself. It looks like it's going to be a shift away now by Lash, losing practically all the Man-at-Arms. He idles a decent chunk of the eco of Marine Lord, but between the rest working elsewhere, not to mention the relics gathered up, overall, M-Lord is mostly unharmed by this. If anything, it brings them back to kind of even. It doesn't actually give an edge over to Lash. He's still a fair distance behind in terms of economy. So the last of the lads are going to be cleaned up. Another Shaman should be coming out soon. Back to the drawing board for Lash. And Lash, yeah, it feels like this was a throwaway force to try and idle eco, snipe eco, but more importantly, draw attention away from your base. And now we see why. He needed the farms. He couldn't easily access the secondary deer because of the control of the outposts. And of course, as we already highlighted, boar is not an option when you play as the Abbasids. It would be way too broken if it was. Really big value in this corner, by the way, for Marine Lord. I just noticed this. Deer plus berries down here, as well as the gold vein. Like, there's a lot of justification, and it's a very defendable area. Feels pretty good long term. The issue that now Lash has is outside these farms. Like, if you're looking at gold, anything else, like, everything is ahead of your base. So if you want to actually have easy control of this area, you need to play into the central sacred forest. Yes, that's what I'm going to call it now. Because I'm talking about this area. And the problem with playing in that area is Marine Lord has beaten you to the punchline. Excuse me. Not only that, Marine Lord is escalating for a raid into your base. I mean, look at this. The amount of units that Lash threw away. He's now transitioning Horseman. Could be effective here, considering Marine Lord is building 100% range right now. Very dangerous game he's playing. However, with enough of these outposts laid around, you kind of get away with it due to the fact that Yam allows you to maneuver, but also the Springwood emplacements easily snipe through the Horsemen. It's like the last lads on the backside are going to be cleaned up. Keep in mind, by the way, that Lash did play into military wing. We usually see the desirability to get preservation and knowledge quite frequently, right? Culture wing is always still prioritized, but this is an interesting kind of pivot point. And I think the reason we saw out Lash is he needed to one-up because he was so far behind. It did allow him to tank in the back of Marine Lord's base for a long time, but it's kind of revealed his hand now. And I think what Marine Lord should realize is that tech ups aren't easily expensed anymore now for Lash. And it means every time he makes a transition like he's doing right now, it's a higher burden on his economy. That's why, if we look at the count, we can see that Marine Lord is a hell of a distance ahead in the military right now. Doubling him up and now moving in. Outpost being spammed on the front line. More siege to come afterwards, because this is where you start to mass trebuchets. And doesn't matter how many horsemen Lash tries to get together, it's going to be very difficult to dive here. Even more so if he reveals his hand too early. And oh, God. He's patrolling. Okay, so this is now where Marine Lord can choose to counter if he needs to. I don't think he sees the threat, though. If I'm Marine Lord like this, like the amount of units I've got, I just keep escalating. Because I'll get enough archers that by the time the horsemen gap close, most of them are going to be dead. Speaking of those horsemen, looks like they don't even want a direct fight. They're trying to wrap around, but targets of opportunity are very limited here. Another issue is if you choose to go on this raid, there's absolutely nothing in your base to counter Marine Lord. I get why Lash feels the need to do it, but he just sent away his strongest units against the composition that Marine Lord has. Think about what horsemen do here. They counter the archers. They counter the crossbows. They counter the siege. They can take out the outposts. Like, they are your world. And without them, you are lost. I'll see that raid coming in. I mean, it's going to be limited impact as well. Marine Lord could just look away from his economy and dive in and end the game. That's how strong this army is. It doesn't even matter if he loses 40 villages somehow now. If he select and hit the delete key on all these villages on the tree line, Marine Lord could still push in and end this game. Because his military count is just so big. And the siege is there. And remember, it's an Abbasid player. An Abbasid player who dropped a Ford Keep that is not going to last long enough to get anything out of it. And then after that, House of Wisdom and TC next on the chopping block with easy access to them, because as is atypical of Abbasids, they always park them right next to each other. So the last of the horsemen are going to be pushed away. Overall, it's a struggle to see the way right now. I mean, more horsemen being massed up by Lash. He has to go soon, though, and I think he knows it. Trimp Trebuchet now targeting onto the House of Wisdom. Probably more where that came from. I mean, Marine, he can afford to build 2 more trebuchets if he chooses. Could go double Mangonel and body block onto these horsemen. Another keep going up, but Lash, this does nothing. It doesn't block access to the TC, and that's the problem here. Traction trebuchets can still reach. Good raid on the backside coming out, at least from Lash. We talked about this as kind of being his only option. He has to keep going around on the flanks. He has to keep finding small ecos to exploit, but the issue is, like, Marine Lord, although it would be nice to have these deer, he doesn't need them. He's got pastures at home. It's the strength of the Mongols. Unless you can assault their main base, their main TC, you don't shut down their food. If you can't shut down his food, the Marine Lord can do whatever he chooses, and what he chooses is spears. The counter is coming. And it feels like your first Striker Horseman achieved very little, and now as a result, this counter is going to come out at, you know, about 66% of the cost. Exactly 66% of the cost to the Horseman. You need to go. In fact, if you wait 2 minutes, I actually think Marine Lord has enough spears to hold you back. If we look at the count right now, like Lash sacrificed a lot of horsemen. He's up to 23. Now quickly look at Marine Lord. He's already up to 16 spearmen. All right, this is chalked. The only way Lash can now recover is if he gets Mangonels. The problem is there's 6 Springwalls to contest with. A Ford Keep drop coming. Lash is do or die, and he knows it. However, the position suggests die here. Horsemen wrapping around. Archers moving in, everything moving in. A wrap on the side, a pinch onto the trebuchets, but he doesn't care. The body blocks come in. Lash. Idle Eco doing nothing. Wrap around from the Horsemen is pretty damn irrelevant here. Numbers alone are now going to allow Marine Lord to push through. Keep finally going up. However, with no army left to defend and Mangonels hailing fire upon your villages, you can't help but feel this is about to be a heavy deficit for Lash to recover. I mean, it's pretty much short. Like, the Treb's going to get rebuilt. Another Keep's going to go down. Lash has exploited pretty much all the stone he's going to have access to. You can see the stone outcrop on the backside has nothing left. These keeps have bought him time. The problem is that Lash hasn't done anything to get one up with that time. You know, he built these horsemen that got counted out by archers chasing after them. He's building this keep aggressively, but Lash, man, I love you, bro, but this is the wrong opponent to do this against. No, not Marine Lord, the Civ. Even if this keep went up in an important location, it's a Mongol player. He'll just pack up and move away. And I think you need to pack up and leave the game. He doesn't even get the keep. Pipped at the post. Lash out of answers. Quadruple up in favor of Marine Lord in the military. That should be game. Whew. Man, I gotta give it to Marine Lord. This was really decided in the first 10 minutes. He set the pace, he slowed down the escalation, and you never really saw the powerhouse that is the Abbasids. Around the 20-minute mark, it still felt like they were playing and dancing to the tune of Marine Lord, and that's why this looked like such a clean victory. That TC timing after delaying in the Abbasids is key, and it gives him full control of this game throughout.